So it was really, really cold yesterday and it was really cold this morning, so I woke up, I put my big jumper on, and now it is like streaming sunshine into my room, hitting my face, and I'm like boiling to a crisp. Hi everybody, I hope that you're all doing really well. So today I am back to talk about my autumn TBR, the books that I am really keen to get to this autumn. As you'll probably know from my channel, I don't tend to do a lot of TBRs. I think the one and only time that I have done a TBR was my Tudor TBR, and that was kind of like a loose, here are some books about the Tudor monarchy that I'm quite keen to get to, but you know, no pressure, no time limit. I don't really like to set monthly TBRs because I'm never going to stick to them, let's be honest. You know, I'm very much a mood reader, it's very kind of loose. However, there are always a few books that are slightly higher priority for me that I do want to kind of hold myself accountable and say, hey, maybe you want to prioritize these things over others. And I feel like doing a seasonal TBR is just a little bit less strict. It gives you a little bit more time than the monthly. You know, you've given yourself 3 months in order to try and get to some of these books. And like I say, not going to be too strict about it. And I thought instead of trying to overwhelm myself by putting loads and loads of books in here, I would just talk about 10 books that I'm really keen to get to. I was trying to do it 5 books that I already own on my TBR and then 5 books that are new to me that I would need to pick up. Actually, the way that it's turned out is that I've got 6 books that I own and then 4 books that I want to pick up at some point, which is, it's kind of nice, kind of good for my purse to not be buying loads and loads of new books. These aren't particularly books that I think scream autumn, they're not seasonal reads, but just books that I want to get to in the next 3 months. That being said, I am going to start with a book that is on the more seasonal side of things, and that is A Poem for Every Autumn Day, which is edited by Allie Esiri. So over the last few years, you'll probably have seen Pam Macmillan have had these poetry collections, one which is a poem for every day of the year, and then a poem for every night of the year, in which they pick a poem that they think particularly speaks to that particular day of the year. They've also done a Shakespeare version of this as well, and recently they have decided to re-release these poems but in lovely seasonal collections. So for each day between the 1st of September and the 30th of November, there are 2 poems to read, one to read in the morning, one to read in the evening. And they are slowly going to be releasing these seasonal collections as and when they are appropriate. So I believe end of October is when the winter version is coming out, and I will leave a bit of space to show you, but they are both absolutely stunning. I did put an Instagram post kind of sharing this, but if you want to look a bit closer, you know, there's a pumpkin, there's a fox, there are all the leaves on the trees, and a squirrel, and a bat, cobwebs, fireworks going on, and it's stunning. I really wanted to get to this because I'd always been really interested in the poems for every day, every night of the year, but they are like 500-600 pages, and I don't know necessarily if I would commit to it the whole year, but for some reason having this slightly shorter poetry collection seems to work a lot better for my head. I don't know, but I'm currently filming this on the 31st of August, which means that tomorrow I will be cracking this open and reading the first 2 poems, so I'm really excited to do that. And now I'm going to alternate with a book that I do not currently own but is on my wish list to buy, and that is Burnt Sugar by Avni Doshi. You'll probably have heard of this one because it has been recently longlisted for the Booker Prize, and there is high speculation that it's going to make the shortlist or maybe even win. I don't know because I've not read it and I'm still kind of quite high in the Mantel hype train, though I'm starting to have doubts whether or not they are going to let her have the hat trick of Booker Prizes. I'm still holding out hope, but you know, I am very open to reading this and this changing my mind. Pretty much everybody who I have seen review this have said that it's absolutely fantastic and definitely deserves a place on the shortlist, so I am very excited to get to this. From what I understand, this kind of tracks a mother-daughter relationship that is quite contentious. However, the daughter is really having to come to terms with the fact that her mother is very ill and she's losing a lot of her memory. Kind of trying to reconcile the negative feelings that she has about her mother, but also having to look after her in her severely weakened state. Next up from my own TBR, we have The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett. Now, over the last few months, this has been getting so much buzz and so much hype on BookTube. I've heard so much praise for it that I immediately knew that I had to pick it up and see what I thought. I believe this is set in the 1950s in the Deep South and follows 2 sisters who are from a black community but who are white passing. They both attempt to leave their community in search of a better life and along the way get separated, and then we see them a few years later in which they both have children. One of the sisters has married a black man and has kind of embraced her black identity, whereas the other sister is living passing for white in another community with her husband not knowing about her heritage. So as you can expect, there are major themes of racism but also of colorism. As I say, I I've heard so many fantastic things about this book and about Brit Bennett. I know a lot of people are starting to read The Mothers by her, so definitely if I like this, I'll definitely want to pick that up as well. Next up, with very strong recommendation from Kieran from KD Books, we've got The Little Friend by Donna Tartt. As I've mentioned before, Kieran has been on an intense crusade to get everybody to read this, and I feel like autumn is probably the best time to read it. I don't know why, I feel like it's just got like this kind of dark vibe, and I feel like a lot of Donna Tartt's books tend to have this kind of dark, mysterious vibe where, you know, like curling up in autumn with like a cozy blanket is the best time to read them. From what I understand, this is told from the perspective of a child who is trying to find out who murdered her brother. He was found dead one day and it was kind of written off as no foul play, but she believes that it might have been murder, so she's trying to find out who did it. And that seems like typical October Halloween spooky fare for me. Next up, from the books that I do not currently own, we have Stephen and Matilda, Cousins of Anarchy. Now, who would have suspected that a book about Empress Matilda would be on this list? Who? I've never spoken about her before in my life. So yes, you'll probably have seen that I have talked a lot about Empress Matilda, and particularly about the book Matilda, Empress Queen Warrior by Catherine Hanley, and I'm just in the mood to read more about her. I recently read Queens of the Conquest by Alison Weir and wasn't too enamoured by her portrait of Matilda, and I've since been like trying to look at more things about her. I found a couple of fiction books about her, but they both look really, really badly written, so I'm not gonna bother with those. There's also another book called Stephen and Matilda, which apparently from the reviews is very, very biased towards Stephen. And I know that, you know, for the sake of being balanced, I probably should read it, and I will read it at some point. But I don't think I'm there yet. I feel like I need a little bit of Matilda hype, which apparently this book does provide. It does have a much more balanced depiction where it kind of alternates back and forth. One chapter will be from Stephen's perspective, one chapter will be from Matilda's perspective. And I think I feel like that's just going to give a lot more balance. Whereas I feel like depictions of Matilda in the past have not been particularly balanced because of the chronicles that people are basing their writing on. I feel like often if the sources are not being particularly kind to Matilda, historians will kind of be a bit lazy and be like, yeah, I guess she was bad, rather than doing what they should be doing, which is interrogating why it is that they are saying these things. Is it because she is actually bad, or is it because they are writing, you know, in support of Stephen? You know? Next, we have Natives, Race and Class in the Ruins of Empire by Akala. This is a book that I've seen so much buzz about in the last few months, and I'm really, really keen to pick this up. From what I understand, it deals very much with the author Akala's own personal experiences with racism and classism in the UK, but also brings in British history and the ways in which racial history has really been neglected and ignored. From the first time he was stopped and searched as a child, to the day he realised his mum was white, to his first encounters with racist teachers, race and class have shaped Akala's life and outlook. In Natives, he takes his own experiences with education, the police, identity, and everything in between, and uses them to look at the social, historical, and political factors that have left us where we are today. I feel like this is going to be a book that is really just going to become essential reading for everybody, particularly for British readers. So, I'm saying highly recommend, but I've not read it. So can I do that? Read it anyway. Next book that I do not currently own but I really want to read in autumn is Silver Sparrow by Tayari Jones. Now, I read An American Marriage last year, which won the Women's Prize for Fiction. It was the first time that something that I wanted to win the Women's Prize actually did win. So I'm really, really keen to get to this. I believe this is from her backlist and is just recently being republished in the UK. I could be wrong about that. It is another book that follows two sisters, or in this case, two half-sisters, because the father of these two girls is a bigamist. He has two separate families, and one of the sisters knows that he is married to another woman and has another daughter, and the other daughter does not know. And their journey in meeting each other and finding out the truth, and yeah, I like I say, I don't know very much about this going in, but I know Tayari Jones's writing style and how she crafts her characters, and I really enjoyed An American Marriage, so I'm sure that I'm really going to enjoy this too. Next up for books that I want to read in autumn, we have Uncrowned Queen, The Fateful Life of Margaret Beaufort, Tudor Matriarch by Nicola Tallis. This was a book that I picked up in my book haul back in York, which I will link down below for you, but this is all about the life of Margaret Beaufort, who was the mother of Henry VII. As you know, I like a bit of Tudor history, so this was obviously going to be right up my alley, but especially learning about Margaret Beaufort, who is a character in English history who I know bits about but not everything, and I'd like to get a bit more in-depth perspective on her. 28th of January 1457. England is in the grip of the Wars of the Roses. Inside the fortified stone walls of Pembroke House, a 13-year-old girl gives birth to a boy. The ordeal nearly kills them both, forging a powerful bond that will see mother and son work together to found the most famous dynasty in British history, the Tudors. So yes, very excited to get to this. The last of my owned books that I really want to get to in autumn, like I say, this is not an extensive list, this is just my top 10, is The Social Life of Books, Reading Together in the 18th Century Home by Abigail Williams. As I've said in the past, I am a really big fan of the history around reading and literacy and print culture. It was something that I was really interested in, particularly during my undergrad years, and something that I want to get back into and pick up again. And this, from what I understand, really tracks reading in the 18th century and how it grew to be a proper domestic hobby as more people are being educated and becoming literate, not to the extent that they would be during the Victorian period, but it is becoming much more of a household thing to get together and read together, whether that is reading aloud to the family or reading solo, silently in your head. It's a book that maybe won't have quite as much crossover for everybody on BookTube, but is something that is, like, personally really dear to my heart, so I'm really looking forward to reading this. And then the last of these 10 books on my autumn TBR that I really want to get to in the next 3 months, we have Game of Queens, The Women Who Made 16th Century Europe by Sarah Gristwood. Hi, my name is Charlotte and I really like queens. As the title suggests, this is all about the prominent women, the queens around Europe who really shaped and changed the 16th century. We've got Isabella of Castile, we've got Anne Boleyn, we've got Elizabeth I, we've got Mary I, and we've got other European queens that I've never actually heard of or learnt about, which is always really good and educational for me. So very much looking forward to this because, as I say, queens are my sweet spot. I enjoy learning about queens. So yes, those are all the books that I'm really looking forward to reading in the next 3 months through September through to November. Let's see if I can get to them all. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I've talked about today. Let me know also some of your top TBR books for autumn. Are you a very seasonal reader who tends to like to read creepy gothic books in October, September time, or do you just read whatever you want, whenever you want? Do let me know. I'd love to hear from you. I hope you are having a fantastic day and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.